Story 1. I used to live in an apartment in San Diego near Mission Bay, where the jet boat races were held. I worked as a consultant and often flew home on a late-night flight, landing early Saturday mornings, just in time for the jet boat festivities. These weekends were always chaotic due to the influx of fans, and parking in that part of the city was already challenging, even without the races. Despite the hassle, the events were always enjoyable. One particular Saturday, I pulled into the alley leading to my apartment and approached my assigned parking space. To my surprise, I found a family spilling out of an overloaded minivan parked in my designated spot. Their vehicle was surrounded by boogie boards, red wagons, coolers, beach chairs, toys, floaties, and several children. I parked my car, got out, and approached the man I assumed to be the father. I politely informed him that he was parked in my assigned space and needed to find another spot. However, he immediately began shouting at the top of his lungs, claiming, "I was here first. This is my parking space, not yours." Shortly after, his wife joined in, insisting that they had been searching for parking for nearly an hour and accusing me of being unreasonable. I tried to explain that it was an assigned parking space and even pointed out the bright red notice painted on the pavement stating it was reserved for Unit #19. Unfortunately, they refused to believe me. Understanding their frustration but firm in my right to the space, I reiterated that they were making a mistake and asked them to move so I could park, shower, and rest after my exhausting flight. The van's Arizona license plates confirmed they were tourists, which would become relevant later. Despite my warnings that their vehicle could be towed, the family ignored me, gathered their beach gear, and headed toward the shore. As they walked away, the father rudely made an obscene gesture at me, leaving me to deal with the situation. Unsurprisingly, their van was eventually towed. Later that day, my girlfriend and I, who were relaxing on our second-story deck overlooking the parking area, noticed that my car was now parked safely in its designated spot. For context, I owned 2 cars at the time. The one parked in the alley was an old, inexpensive Saturn I had purchased for airport commutes and as a placeholder to prevent others from blocking access to my garage. My garage housed my more valuable vehicle, which I kept protected from potential mishaps involving tourists. The Saturn was a neglected vehicle. I never changed its oil, and it bore the marks of seagull droppings and jet exhaust from its frequent stays at Lindbergh Airport. Knowing that the family would likely return to find their van missing, I wanted to ensure my car wouldn't be vandalized out of anger. Sure enough, the family came back around 7 p.m. The father was visibly drunk and sunburned, while the mother appeared less intoxicated but equally angry. Thankfully, the children were not with them, sparing them from what unfolded next. When the father realized the van was gone, he became furious. My girlfriend filmed the scene on her new smartphone as I called down, reminding him, "I told you I'd tow you." Enraged, he looked up, made an obscene gesture at us, and then began kicking the door of my Saturn repeatedly. The situation escalated quickly, but since we lived in the Pacific Beach area, which had a heavy police presence, officers arrived within minutes. They arrested both the father and mother for assault, as they had made numerous threats, and charged the father with criminal damage and trespassing. The story ended on a satisfying note. My girlfriend, who was studying law at the University of California, helped me navigate the legal process, ensuring the father had to make multiple trips from Phoenix to San Diego for court proceedings. I also won compensation in court, allowing me to give the Saturn a new paint job. With its improved condition, I decided it was too nice to leave at the airport, so I changed the oil and sold it for $2,000. Using the proceeds, I purchased another inexpensive placeholder car to continue serving its purpose. Story 2. Back when I was studying for my early childhood educator, also known as preschool teacher, I was assigned to an inner-city daycare for my internship. The daycare was located in an office tower and catered mostly to the people that worked in the buildings nearby. I was posted to the preschool room, 24 5-year-olds and 3 teachers. I was excited and eager to learn everything I could and really wanted to do a good job. Good job =happy kiddos. Happy kiddos =good grades. Easy peasy, right? Two of the teachers were fantastic. Let's call them Polly and Molly. They welcomed me, showed me around, and introduced me to the rest of the center staff. Every day, I learned more from them and felt I was growing as a teacher. The third lady was, not as nice. Okay, she was openly hostile. Maybe she ran out of Molochs, or she just needed to get her some, but the woman was really rude and annoying. Let's call her Bertha. Bertha was older than the rest of us by at least 20 years and made it her life's mission to cut me down every chance she got. Paints not put away to her specifications. She would remind me loudly in front of parents that I had to do it again and properly this time. Dollhouses not lined up in perfect symmetry. I would be given a lecture by a very gleeful Bertha on the need to keep the classroom tidy. No matter what I did, Bertha found a way to criticize everything I touched. Talks to the center director got me no satisfaction. It got to the point Molly and Polly were trying to intervene on my behalf with no success. I figured I was only going to be there for 3 months, so I would just suck it up, finish my term, and hoped it would go by quickly. It all came crashing down, quite literally, one sunny morning. We had taken the kids on an extended walk across the city to a puppet show, and were on our way back to the center with our double line of happy little ducks when I stepped off a curb to cross the road and took a nosedive into the street. Our line of ducklings stopped. Molly and Polly helped me up, and we assessed my assorted injuries. Face scraped, yup. Knees bruised, yup. But most alarming was the 6-inch slice of 1/4 inch deep road rash on my hand that was causing blood to pour down my arm and drip off my elbow. "Oh, you need to go to the Molly and Polly told me. "Stop bleeding, you're traumatizing the children." Bertha, on the other hand, said this. Me, trying not to bust out bawling in front of our ducklings. "I need to go to the No, you need to go back to the center with us and finish out your day," Bertha told me. "Bertha, she's bleeding," Molly and Polly tried telling her, but she cut them off. "I am the head teacher here. Finish the day or I will write you up, and you will get a failing grade on your internship." Molly or Polly, I forget which one, dug through our supply backpack and managed to find me a face cloth to put over my hand. When we got back to the center, I cleaned my arm up and wrapped my hand in a dish towel. The pain was so bad, I actually wondered if I had broken my wrist. I thought of going to the director, but her office was dark and locked, leaving Bertha in charge of the center along with me, so I managed to finish out the day by changing the dish towel about halfway through. The thought of being written up loomed large in my mind. I didn't want to fail my internship and maybe be removed from the course, so I sucked it up and chugged along, enduring scoffs and eye rolls from Bertha and comforted by supportive hugs and sympathy from Molly and Polly when Bertha wasn't looking. I made it home, walked through the front door, and burst into tears. My family looked at my bloody towel and wanted to know what happened. I showed them my hand, and one of my many brothers shoved me into his car and took me to the The next few hours were filled with a whole bunch of pain, while the doctors painstakingly picked every tiny bit of gravel they could see out of my hand and then scrubbed it with a bristle brush to make sure it was clean. To add insult to injury, I was given 2 shots in the bum, antibiotics and tetanus. Then my hand was wrapped in a soft cast, and I was given a note for light duty for 2 weeks. The next day, I was back at work taking my coat off when Bertha walked into the staff room and saw my cast. She scoffed and said, "Going for the dramatic look, are we?" "No, the doctor put this on my arm last night after spending 2 hours picking gravel and mud out of my hand." Shocked Pikachu face. I walked past her and straight to the director's office and told her everything that had happened. She was so mad at Bertha, who ended up being the one written up. My professor was contacted, and I was moved immediately to a different center across the city. Later, I heard that Bertha left the daycare. Whether it was on her own steam or she was kicked to the curb, I don't know. I was just happy to hear she was gone. Edit to add. I see many comments expressing concern for the ducklings. Bertha was extremely kind to them. Please don't worry about them. Story 3. I worked the night shift as a receptionist at a hotel in Norway. and most nights are spent watching streaming shows or playing games. Last summer was particularly slow, and since I was working a lot of extra shifts, I eventually ran out of things to watch and games to play. One quiet night, I received an email from someone who called himself Scooter. He wanted to book a room for nearly 20 days and asked me to provide a price and confirm availability. Once I did, he said he would send his credit card information for prepayment. Normally, emails like this are ignored as they are often part of fraudulent schemes, but I was bored and decided to respond. I offered a price of around $2,000 for the entire stay and made sure to include that the booking could be canceled for free up until the day of arrival. This type of scam is common in the hotel and travel industry. Unlike other businesses, hotels can charge credit or debit cards using only the card number and expiration date. No additional authentication, such as a PIN or security code, is needed. Hotel software can also deposit money directly into local and international bank accounts using card numbers. Scammers like Scooter exploit this by using stolen or skimmed cards for prepayment, then canceling the booking and requesting the refund be sent to a different card. A few hours after I sent him the offer, Scooter replied with a Visa card number and asked me to charge it as soon as possible. I used our validation software to check the card and discovered it didn't belong to Scooter. In most cases, validation returns the card owner's name, which didn't match. I replied that the card was declined due to insufficient funds, and he quickly sent another card to try. This card also didn't belong to Scooter and wasn't even issued by the same bank as the first one. By examining the BIN codes, the first 6 digits of the card number, I determined the cards were issued by banks in different countries. Initially, I planned to contact the issuing banks to report the attempted fraud. However, with several hours left on my shift, I decided to have a bit of fun with Scooter. I replied that the second card had gone through successfully and provided a fake reference number for his stay. As expected, a couple of hours later, Scooter emailed to cancel the booking and requested the refund be sent to a different card, claiming he had lost his wallet and deactivated the original card. The new card was issued by a Polish bank. For context, Polish bank accounts are often used in money laundering schemes, including those involving cryptocurrencies and other illicit activities. Scooter was likely feeling optimistic about the $2,000 he believed he would soon receive. I replied that transferring the money to a different card wouldn't be a problem as long as the card was valid. To add a twist, I implied that my boss would process the refund on Monday due to server maintenance over the weekend. This would buy time for the charged bank to reverse the transaction. I also mentioned he could call the hotel before my shift ended at 7 a.m. if he needed the money urgently. Scooter called almost immediately, providing the new card number and his phone number. I assured him the money had been transferred and would appear in his account by noon. After my shift ended, I went home with all the information Scooter had shared. Using his phone number, I found his open Facebook profile, which included his address and employer. Scooter resembled the artist Scooter, but with a more disheveled appearance and spiked, gel-filled hair. He lived in a rundown area outside of London, reminiscent of a neglected trailer park. To my surprise, Scooter's Facebook profile indicated he worked at a hotel. This meant he likely had access to credit card information from guests booking through platforms like Booking.com. I called the hotel manager and explained the situation, providing the names of the individuals whose cards Scooter had attempted to use. Unsurprisingly, both cardholders had stayed at the hotel. I informed the manager that Scooter was the likely culprit. The manager was furious, yelling loudly enough that I couldn't catch every word. But it seemed Scooter wasn't a regular employee. He was part of a government training program. Next, I contacted Visa and MasterCard's international departments to report Scooter's activities. They confirmed it would be easy to trace additional fraudulent transactions linked to the hotel and Scooter's Polish deposit account. This would provide concrete evidence to hold him accountable and potentially take legal action. Later, the police contacted me for a statement, confirming that the hotel manager had reported the incident. Although I don't know what happened to Scooter, His Facebook profile now indicates he no longer works at the hotel or anywhere else, as far as I can tell. Story 4. It's midsummer, I think 2004, maybe 2005, and we're in the middle of a minor heat wave. I've swung past the cafe to meet my friend as he's finishing up work, 4 p.m. or so we can head back to his place, chill out, catch up and such. I've arrived a little early, so I've ordered a bagel and cold drink while I wait. Now I'm sitting essentially in a corner seat kinda behind the front door, basically obscured, and just idly listening to whatever was on the radio, not really thinking about anything in particular. I'm about halfway through my bagel when I start to hear raised voices, not actually shouting yet, but leaning towards it. Out of curiosity, if nothing else, I stick my head up and try to clock what's going on. Across the other side of the cafe, I can see my friend and the Karen having some verbal. She's the one increasing in volume. I watch for a minute or two, trying to get a handle on what this is about, but otherwise quite content to watch a bit of a floor show. Hey, it's not my cafe, and my mate has plenty of experience in dealing with this sort of nonsense. I digress. I tune out the music and focus in on the conversation argument, and as best I can recall it runs thus. I hear Karen say, "It's just not good enough. This quality of service is atrocious." "I believe you'll find our regular customers disagree," my friend tells her. "Regular? I'm a regular, I'll have you know, young man. I come in here all the time." "I've never seen you before, ma'am." "Well, I've never seen you here before either, and the service I've had today is awful. I don't know why anyone would come here when it's like this. The service you've had has been the same as anyone else would get. You can't have a free bottle." "Well, I can see them on other tables. Why isn't there one on my table?" "Anyone who has a bottle has paid for it. If you would like one, the counter staff will be happy to oblige." "Oh, so now you're telling me you don't do table service. What sort of place is this?" "I want your manager now. You're a terrible servant." "Yes," she said servant. I'm assuming she meant waiter. Who knows? I can tell from my friend's expression he's starting to get to somewhere between angry and amused. "I'm not your servant, ma'am, and no, we don't take orders at the tables. We will, however, bring your orders to the table once prepared. Now please, if you want a bottle, go to the counter." My friend starts to turn away to get on with something else. "Excuse me, how dare you turn your back on me?" The dare came out at a pitch that could rattle glass. "Get me your manager right now. I'll have you out of your job and on the street, young man." He then flashes her a proverbial big grin and says, "Miss, I am the manager." I should note that some of the other customers who are now fully tuned into this little show, and who assuredly are regulars as I recognize a few faces, start to chuckle. They all know my friend is the manager, as he's a well-liked sort, far more likable than I am if truth be told. Karen does one of those little dismissive head tuts and says, "With tattoos like that? Nonsense. You liar, no one would make you manager. You look like a thug. I want your boss, get him, or give me his phone number right now." "Oh, to hell with it, miss. You're now just being annoying, and I have no further interest in you being in my establishment. Please collect your things and leave." "I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to have you fired. You can't kick me out." This goes back and forth for a few minutes. She's refusing to leave, getting more worked up, and my friend is trying as diplomatically as possible to talk her down and get her out. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the place tends to get a share of young mothers. One of them is sitting down at my end and has been watching the situation with the same sort of expression as myself, I think. But her kid, not sure on age, maybe 18 months-ish, has been woken up by the shouting and gets a bit worked up. You know, that kind of gasping sound that happens just before they start to scream. Yup. My friend looks over towards the mother and baby. The mother is trying to soothe the baby as best as she can. Karen just keeps shouting. At this point, the shouting has become a bit incoherent. My friend looks at me and has the look of "screw it," turns back to the Karen and totally deadpan tells her, "Listen, lady, if you don't leave right now, force will be used to evict you from the premises. Your shouting is disturbing the regulars, and I don't want you in my establishment." You can't force me to go anywhere. This is public. I'm not going until I speak to your boss. My friend looks over at me again and just nods, points at Karen, and points to the door. I stand up. Now you need to know that I'm a big guy, 6'2 inches, and at the time about 320 pounds, ex-services, and I was at the time working for government security on secondment with county police. To be clear though, I'm wholly a civilian at this point. I've been at work during the day, and I've gone to meet my mate still with some work kit on me, which in this case includes some comms kit, a tactical vest, with plates, cuffs and other odds and ends. People dressed like me isn't a common sight in our city, so it stands out. I start walking over to Karen, who's totally oblivious, and I catch the eye of a few of the regulars who are smiling with a fair expectation of what's going to happen next. I step up to the side of Karen, and with a voice raised enough, "Miss, can I have your attention, please?" Karen turns, and there's this almost comedic moment as she's eye level with my chest, and she has to tilt her head back to look at my face. I've got a shaved head, goatee beard, and she clams up silent as her brain plays catch-up. The manager here has asked you repeatedly to leave the premises, and your volume has disturbed a minor, and no doubt the other patrons. As the manager has stated his position, you need to leave. Now, please collect your things and get out. What is this? Who are you? I fold out my ID that's tucked into the tactical. Right now I'm just a concerned citizen who has been asked by the manager to help you leave the premises. Now pick up your bag and start walking. You can't make me go anywhere. I don't care who you think you are. I haven't spoken to the real manager yet. I'm not going. Miss, on my oath, I promise you, he really is the manager. Now I will ask you one last time to leave voluntarily. If you refuse to do so, I will use force and you will be ejected. You lay your hands on me, mister. I'll have you charged for assault. You can't touch a lady. You are refusing wholly to leave then, are you? Didn't you hear what I just said? One body rotation later, her left arm reversed, bent at the elbow with the back of the hand towards the back of her neck. My arm hooked under the armpit and pressure applied to force her over at the waist. I grab her bag with my free arm and start walking her towards the door. My friend at this point is 2 steps ahead of me, gets the door open, and I get her out onto the pavement. Quickly I disengage, releasing her unharmed, place her bag on the pavement in front of her, and step back into the doorway. Karen shakes her arm a bit, has a moment of being almost bewildered, looks at me and just snaps. Jumps straight at me and starts striking my face. The first 2 strikes totally caught me off guard, and now I'm trying to get her back under control. It takes a few minutes as I find out firsthand that her nails are really sharp. Now I've got her on the floor. I'm keeping my torso and face away from her with my leg essentially pinning her against the exterior wall of the cafe and having a moment to myself of, well heck, this wasn't what I'd planned for the afternoon. She's now screaming blue murder, and as I said earlier, it's a really hot day, and there's plenty of people milling around, and it's getting an audience. If I let you up, are you going to leave now? Karen is trying to get free and clawing at my leg. Not with much success though. Heavy-duty blacks are taking the sting out of her nails. Screw you. You've assaulted me now. Police. Someone call the police. She starts punching my shin. Me, internally, oh screw it. Then I tell her, you know what? Sure, let's get the police. I'm sure the manager would love to discuss this situation with them. I grab my comms, put a call through to the station that's about a mile away, and ask how quickly I can get a uniformed assist. Callback says 5 minutes. Fine, I can wait. I leave the comms channel open so the incoming officers can hear everything. Miss, there's police coming. I'm going to let you up if you want to leave, and we can all go on with our day in peace. Karen is still trying to get free by hitting my calf and shin. I've eased up the pressure so she's not going anywhere, but certainly not causing any pain either. Hell, she could probably actually get up, but she's not particularly cogent at this point. I know people, I've got friends, my husband will have you. Sure. My friend from behind asks, you good? Yeah, got uniforms coming. Everything okay in there? Yeah, the baby is just noising up. Cool. I can just hear a siren pulsing a bit in the near distance, trying to clear through junctions. Ha, that's the police coming for you. You're going to jail now. Uh-huh. Mercifully, the car pulls up at this point. The passenger side uniform gets out first, looks at me and blanches a little, then goes to Karen and starts to cuff her. The driver's side uniform gets out and comes round. Driver's side, I know on a first-name basis. Man, doesn't that hurt? Me, looking down at my leg. Eh? Nah, not really. She's not hitting that hard. No, your face? What about my face? The other officer has got Karen cuffed at this point and gets her into the back of the car nice and quick. My officer friend turns me around so I can see my reflection in the cafe window, and at the same time I realize my face hurts really bad. Turns out the first strike she got earlier had gouged 4 solid strips into my left cheek, maybe a half-inch below the eye, and it's bleeding fairly keenly down my chin. I'd honestly not noticed it due to a bit of adrenaline. My friend comes out of the cafe to meet the police and clocks my face. Dude, that looks really sore. I tell him with a slight grin. You betcha. So, charges? My police friend asked me. Karen ends up taking a deal without going to court, the latest in an adult career of previously relatively petty infractions, 18 months for assault. I got 4 mild scars that only really stand out if I get a bit of a tan. The punchline. What had started all this in the first place? Well, the cafe was supplying jugs of iced still water at every table due to the heat. They had liter bottles of fizzy water in a chiller for a price for people who wanted that instead. Karen had seen them on other tables and just assumed they were free, so had kicked off over the fact that her table didn't have one. Story 5. Man, if you had told me years ago that I would be in this situation, I would have laughed. Hard. But here we go. So here's the deal. I'm a 26-year-old gal, let's call me Emily. Back in college, I was dating this guy named James. We had big plans, the whole shebang, graduation and engagement stuff. But life took a wild turn 2 months before graduation. Caught the guy red-handed, planning to cheat. Yeah, he and some other girl were cooking up plans for a weekend getaway. The same weekend he told me he was heading home for a quick family visit. Cheating's a big no-no for me, so I didn't waste time. Instead of blowing up, I bided my time, gathered the evidence, and when he left for his so-called home trip, I dropped the bomb, sent him the proof and a snappy, "Good thing you're single now, have fun," and just like that, I blocked him everywhere. He lost his marbles and spent a whole month trying to reach out to me, using every trick in the book, even pulling in my friends to guilt-trip me. But those messages, straight to the digital dumpster, unread. After a while, I thought he got the memo and moved on. A year rolled by, and then my younger sister, she's 24, announces she's bringing her new boyfriend to meet the fam. Surprise, surprise, the new boyfriend is none other than James himself. My parents were like, "What got?" but tried to keep it cool. Me? Not so much. I just hightailed it out of there. My sis called later, trying to explain how they met at some party and how it wasn't a big deal since I was the one who broke up with him. Yeah, well, I told her I thought she deserved better. But hey, it's her life, her choices. I just made it clear I wouldn't be hanging around them much. Sis got all riled up, claiming I had the parents on my side. Now, don't get me wrong, me and my sis, we've got a history of not exactly being BFFs. So dodging them wasn't much of a task, except when holidays rolled around. Eventually, my parents caved, and James started showing up for Thanksgiving and Christmas. They figured he was serious about my sis. But what got to me was how James acted like he was on a mission to win my approval all over again whenever he was around. And guess what? My sis got jealous of that. Her attitude hit a whole new level of bratty. Fast forward to this recent weekend, it was my mom's milestone birthday. I thought, why not introduce them to my current boyfriend, Todd? Dude's 29, and he's a keeper. Mom gave her nod of approval, and Todd just clicked with the family. But James was there too, with my sis on his arm, like some kind of twisted couple. He looked like he'd swallowed a lemon or something and bailed early. My sis gave me a call later, fuming, accusing me of trying to make James jealous and stir up drama. I gave her a reality check, told her that she knew what she was getting into when she decided to date my leftovers. Yeah, I called him sloppy seconds, and honestly, it felt like the right label. Next thing you know, sis is all over social media, airing her grievances and playing the victim card. She's even threatening not to show up for the family holidays if Todd and I are around. My parents, bless their hearts, think she's blowing things out of proportion, but she's got 'em wrapped around her finger, and now they want me to play peacekeeper, apologize for the sloppy seconds comment. But come on, it's like calling a spade a spade. So here I am, in the middle of this mess, feeling like I'm in some soap opera. Life sure is funny, and dealing with entitled people like James and my sis is a whole new level of crazy I never thought I'd face. But you know what? Todd's got my back, and we're not giving in to the drama. As for my sis, well, maybe one day she'll see things straight. But until then, I'm standing my ground and letting the chips fall where they may. Family, can't live with them? Can't avoid their social media tantrums. And now with some comments on the post. Someone saying, "You're definitely not the jerk here. Your sister doesn't want to realize that she ended up with your ex, who isn't worth all this family chaos. If she's mad at you instead of him for his jealousy, it's pretty silly. Saying sorry won't likely make her understand the situation any better." Another commenter adds, "Yep, if I were Op, I'd probably ask her. So, what's the deal? Should I never date again just because your boyfriend still has feelings for me? And now it's my job to make sure he doesn't get jealous and cheat on you." Then, I just leave it at that and see what she says. I mean, what else could your sister possibly expect in this situation? A third commenter goes with, "Not the jerk here. Your description of James as sloppy seconds was fitting. When a grown-up acts out because of their own choices, it's reasonable to let them know why they're acting foolish. You did what's right by holding your ground and not taking the blame for their bad decisions. If your sister feels insecure, she shouldn't have stirred up trouble that would clearly get her called out. As for your parents, yeah, they're stuck in an awkward spot. But that's not your issue. Them wanting to play peacekeeper is a bit messed up given the situation. Depending on your relationship, you could talk to them about genuinely worrying for your sister's well-being, but not being able to do much about it personally. You could let them know you care for her and don't want to exclude her from the family, but you won't take back the truth just because she's throwing a fit. Then, ask them if they want to spend their lives with her acting childish, and them trying to smooth things over when they know she's wrong. Or, will they step up as parents to show her that she's causing her own problems and her actions have consequences? Story 6. I used to work as a retail manager at a convenience store, which meant I had to start my day at 5 a.m., despite not being a morning person. Understanding how difficult it was to be awake at such an early hour, I made an effort to brighten my customers' mornings by being cheerful, sharing light jokes, and wishing them a wonderful day as I completed their transactions. One morning, a regular customer entered the store, and I greeted her warmly as she approached the counter. To my surprise, she responded with a scowl and told me she disliked my cheerful attitude and the way I always wished her a wonderful day. She then demanded that I never smile at her again. Taken aback, I apologized for my demeanor and assured her I would immediately and permanently honor her request. From that point on, I adjusted my behavior toward her. While I continued to interact with other customers in my usual upbeat manner, I adopted a neutral, serious expression whenever she approached the counter. I refrained from smiling or engaging in small talk, completing her transactions in silence before returning to my cheerful interactions with the next customer in line. After about a month of this routine, the woman came in at her usual time and complained that my lack of banter made her feel miserable all day. She expressed frustration over the stark difference in how I treated her compared to other customers. I calmly reminded her of her earlier request and explained that I was simply respecting her wishes. I also reiterated that I had stated my behavior toward her would remain permanently adjusted. Despite her ongoing dissatisfaction, she continued to visit the store each morning. I maintained my cheerful demeanor with other customers, but adhered to her request by not smiling or bantering with her. Each day, she appeared more unhappy with the situation. Had she asked me to tone down my cheerfulness or mentioned that she wasn't in the mood for banter on a particular day, I would have gladly adjusted my approach. However, since she insisted on such a definitive request, I ensured she received exactly what she had asked for.